Welcome to the Pericles Century Podcast, your getaway to discovering Greece's legendary landmarks, biblical sites, and ancient wonders. I'm Irene, and in this series, we'll explore the most fascinating places in Greece, uncovering the stories behind them and bringing history to life. Today, we embark on a journey following the footsteps of one of the most influential figures in Christianity, Apostle Paul. From the grand intellectual halls of Athens to the thriving commercial hub of Corinth, Paul's journey through Greece was one of faith, resistance, and transformation. Let's step back in time and imagine walking through the streets where Paul preached, debated, and changed religious history forever. Paul arrived in Athens around 50 AD, stepping into a city that had been the intellectual heart of the Greek world for centuries. Picture the towering Acropolis, the grand Parthenon, and the lively Agora, a city filled with ideas, debates, and a deep sense of history. Athens at the time was under Roman rule, but it still carried the spirit of its classical past. Unlike other cities Paul visited, Athens was not just religious, it was deeply philosophical. The Stoics and Epicureans, the dominant schools of thought, debated everything from ethics to the nature of the gods. Paul saw idols everywhere. The city was filled with temples, statues, and shrines dedicated to gods and goddesses. One of the most intriguing sights was an altar dedicated to an unknown god. This puzzled Paul. The Athenians, despite their philosophical inclinations, were also deeply religious. They wanted to make sure no deity was left out, just in case. Paul's time in Athens reached its peak at the Areopagus, a rocky outcrop near the Acropolis where legal and philosophical discussions took place. Imagine standing before a group of intellectuals, scholars, and religious leaders trying to explain the concept of one true God. He began his speech with words recorded in Acts 17, verses 22 to 31. Men of Athens, I see that in every way you're very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. Now, what you worship as something unknown, I'm going to proclaim to you. Paul introduced to the Athenians to the Creator, a being beyond temples and statues, a God not confined to human hands. Some scoffed at Paul's words, especially when he spoke about resurrection, a concept foreign to Greek philosophy. But others, including Dionysius the Areopagite, believed. Today, you can stand at the Areopagus and look over the city, just as Paul did centuries ago. The view is breathtaking, and it's easy to imagine the ancient debates that took place here. Leaving Athens behind, Paul traveled westward to Corinth, a city vastly different from the intellectual capital he had just left. Corinth was one of the largest cities in Greece, at the time known for its wealth, commerce, and indulgence. Corinth was a cosmopolitan city, a melting pot of Romans, Greeks, Jews, and merchants from all over the Mediterranean. Unlike Athens, where ideas ruled, Corinth was driven by business and pleasure. At the heart of the city stood the temple of Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Corinth had a reputation for luxury, and many saw it as a city of temptation. Paul, however, saw something else, a place filled with people in need of guidance. Unlike in Athens, where Paul's time was brief, in Corinth he stayed for a year and a half, longer than almost any other city. He worked as a tent maker alongside Aquila and Priscilla, a Jewish couple who had been exiled from Rome. During this time, he established a strong Christian community. Many of his letters, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, were written to guide the believers in Corinth, addressing issues of division, morality, and faith. One of the most beautiful passages from 1 Corinthians 13 is often recited at weddings today. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. And now there's three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Paul's words weren't just poetry. They were meant to heal divisions within the Christian community of Corinth. One of the most significant sites in Corinth today is the Bema, the platform where Roman officials held trials. According to Acts 18, Paul was brought before Gallio, the proconsul of Achaia, by Jewish leaders who opposed his teachings. Gallio dismissed the charges, setting a precedent that allowed Christianity to spread under Roman protection. Visitors today can stand at the very ruins of the Bema, where Paul defended his faith. It's one of the most remarkable biblical landmarks in Greece. Paul's journey through Athens and Corinth was one of contrast. One city was the philosophical heart of the world. The other was a thriving commercial hub filled with challenges and opportunities. His words and actions in the cities changed history, leaving behind a spiritual legacy that continues to inspire millions today. If you want to experience these places firsthand, walk the streets where Paul walked and see history come to life. Search for Pericles Century on Viator or TripAdvisor, or visit tinyurl.com/Apostle Paul Missionary. Our Apostle Paul in Athens and Corinth tour takes you through these sacred locations with expert storytelling and a seamless travel experience. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the footsteps of Apostle Paul. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe for more stories of Greece's legendary sites. Until next time, keep exploring.